Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a story unfolding right now in Egypt that honestly sounds, well, it sounds exactly like a Hollywood thriller.
It really does. But it's 100% real.
Yeah, a completely real-life case study in the extreme limits of moral integrity.
Mm.
And I want you, the listener, to just imagine for a second what you would do if doing the absolute right thing meant voluntarily destroying your own life.
Right, like giving away the person you love most in the world.
Exactly. And the sources we're looking at today detail the unbelievable true story of a man named Mohammed Khamis. And it all starts in 2024 when he opens a sealed envelope containing a DNA test.
A test he only ordered to prove a point in a family argument, you know? But instead, it completely shatters his reality.
Oh, it's wild, because on the surface you can read the news reports and just see a bizarre kidnapping case.
Right.
But when you really get into the sources, it's this profound look at the psychological weight of duty.
And the consequences of a single lie. I mean, it really forces you to ask what it truly means to be a parent.
Absolutely. But to understand the sheer magnitude of the choice Muhammad eventually has to make, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to understand the depth of his devotion to this child.
Right, the foundation of the whole story.
Yeah, so we're starting in 2015. Muhammad is away at work, and his wife goes to a local hospital in Alexandria. She returns hours later, and she has a baby boy with her.
But, this isn't just a normal, healthy newborn.
Not at all. This baby is severely premature. He's dangerously underweight. He actually has a severe hernia and 3 holes in his tiny heart.
Which is terrifying for any parent. But, I mean, let's pause here. The mechanics of this deception are just staggering. How do you pass off a severely premature baby as your own full-term child?
It's insane, right? You'd think someone would notice the timeline doesn't make sense.
You would. But it relies entirely on weaponizing panic. She had to exploit the chaos of the hospital system and then use Muhammad's own fear against him.
Oh, because he's not thinking about timelines.
Exactly. When your wife hands you a critically ill baby, your brain doesn't stop to, like, audit the pregnancy. It goes straight into triage mode. You're looking at a child hovering right on the edge of survival.
The immediate crisis just completely overrides any logical inconsistencies. And Muhammad's response to this crisis is what sets up the next decade. He names the boy Hamza.
And he basically goes to war for this child's life.
He really does. The medical bills for the life-saving surgeries are astronomical. So he literally empties his own home. He sells his household furniture, stripping away his own comfort just to afford the treatments.
Wow. He sold everything.
Everything is like building the entire foundation of your life around keeping this tiny heartbeat going. For 11 years, he treats him as his absolute favorite child, sits with him daily, teaches him to memorize the Quran.
You know, the psychology of caretaking is so fascinating here. How does a father's bond crystallize in that kind of terrifying medical trauma?
It has to be incredibly intense, right?
Oh, absolutely. When you invest that level of resources, your finances, your physical environment, your emotional bandwidth, the bond supersedes standard parental affection.
It becomes almost elemental.
Exactly. To Muhammad, this boy isn't just a son. He's a survivor that Muhammad personally dragged back from the brink of death. That shared history of trauma is crucial context.
Because without understanding that, the twist that's coming just doesn't carry the same weight. That intense trauma-bonded foundation is exactly what his wife's family tries to weaponize against him a decade later.
Right, so we fast forward to 2024.
Yeah, 2024, the marriage is collapsing, they're having severe marital issues, and during this vicious argument, the wife's family decides to launch a deeply malicious blackmail attempt.
And it's a very specific accusation they make, isn't it?
It is. They accuse Muhammad of forcing his wife to raise his sister's illegitimate child for the past 11 years to cover up a family scandal.
Oh, wow. So it's a highly targeted attack aimed directly at his family's honor. They're trying to force him into compliance through the threat of social ruin.
Exactly. They know how much he loves the boy, and they're using the child's ambiguous origins, which, maybe they suspected something was slightly off, to paint Muhammad into a corner.
So Muhammad decides to call their bluff.
He does. He wants to clear his sister's name and just dismantle this blackmail attempt once and for all. So he secretly gets a DNA test for the 11-year-old boy.
He just wants that piece of paper to prove they're lying.
Right. But, as we established earlier, the lab report drops a staggering reality on him. The results come back. 0% DNA match to Muhammad.
Which he might have expected if he thought it was his sister's kid, but...
But it was 0% match to his sister, too. And then, impossibly, a 0% match to his wife.
God. Psychologists call this an ontological shock. It's not just getting bad news, it's the sudden, violent collapse of your fundamental understanding of reality.
I can't even imagine. It's like setting a trap for someone and accidentally detonating your own house.
That's exactly what it is. He isn't just learning his wife lied. He's learning that the past decade of his life physically did not happen the way he experienced it.
The irony is just wild. Because if the wife's family hadn't used this specific, bizarre lie to blackmail him, the dark truth might have never been uncovered.
It really shows how fragile a fabricated reality is. They accidentally completely dismantled the friction keeping their own family intact.
So Muhammad is holding this piece of paper. His entire life as a father is an illusion. And he doesn't hesitate. He immediately divorces his wife.
Which makes sense. The betrayal is absolute.
But he knows that simply handing a DNA test to the police won't get him the full story. His ex-wife would probably just deny everything or, spin a new web of lies.
Right. He needs the historical truth from someone who is proven capable of sustaining a decade-long deception.
Exactly. So to systematically extract it, he enlists his older biological teenage son to set a trap.
This part is chilling. He needs a confession, and he uses the older son to get it.
Yeah, the teenager secretly records a phone call with his mother. He manipulates the conversation, making her panic by telling her the police are literally on their way to arrest her right then and there.
And under that manufactured pressure, the facade finally cracks.
She confesses. She tells the teenager that back in 2015, her own pregnancy was having severe issues. And she was terrified that if she didn't give Muhammad a child, he would leave her.
So she acts out of sheer desperation.
Right. She's wandering the halls of this hospital in Alexandria. She sees a woman who is distracted just filling out medical paperwork. And she reaches out, grabs this stranger's newborn baby, and just walks out the back door.
It's an impulsive, catastrophic choice. But, what must it be like for that older teenage son?
I was thinking the exact same thing. He essentially has to act as an undercover agent and run a psychological sting operation on his own mother.
It's an incredible burden to place on a kid. But to truly understand the mother's confession, we do have to look at the immense cultural pressure at play here.
Because in many traditional societies, a wife's security is heavily tied to providing a child, right?
Precisely. Her fear that Muhammad would abandon her if the pregnancy failed was rooted in a very real systemic marital dynamic. It absolutely doesn't absolve the kidnapping.
No, of course not.
But it explains the terrifying mechanism of why a woman makes that split-second choice. It was a primal fear of abandonment executed in a moment of chaotic panic.
And you have to contrast that impulsive crime with the cold, methodical way Muhammad and his older son operate in 2024 to uncover the truth. It's night and day.
It really is. They become completely surgical about it.
So now that Muhammad holds the confession and the DNA test, he's facing an agonizing crossroads. He loves this boy deeply. It's the only father this 11-year-old has ever known.
It would be so incredibly easy to just bury the recording.
Just burn the DNA test and keep the son he loves.
Right. Who would know?
But his conscience won't let him do it. He cannot stomach the idea of keeping another family's child. So he begins what turns into a grueling 7-month investigation.
Because moral integrity isn't usually just a split-second heroic decision. It's a marathon.
A total endurance test. Think about it, he's basically a detective working a cold case, except the suspect he's trying to catch is essentially himself. He's reverse engineering an 11-year-old illusion.
How does he even start?
He sits at his computer and scours Google. He's typing in combinations like kidnapped baby Alexandria and August 2015, just sifting through years of digital noise.
And he actually finds something.
Turns out he finds a forgotten, archived news article from almost a decade ago. It's about a baby named Fairs who was stolen from the exact same hospital.
Wow. So finding the article gives him a name and a starting point.
Yeah, but identifying a stolen child in an old news clipping is entirely different from physically finding the family. You don't just ask the government for a stranger's phone number.
Especially not with the bureaucracy involved.
Exactly. So Muhammad hits the streets. For days, he literally rides a tuk-tuk through the blistering heat and the sprawling slums of Alexandria.
Just chasing down decade-old addresses.
Yeah, addresses mentioned in that old article. He's knocking on doors, hitting dead ends. He leverages the names from the article to legally push through the system and pull a birth certificate.
Which finally gives him the real father's phone number.
Right. But think about the psychological toll here. With every single address he checks in that tuk-tuk, he is actively, deliberately turning the knife in his own heart. He is working every day to lose his son.
That 7-month marathon of agonizing choices is just astounding. 210 days of waking up, looking at the boy he sold his furniture to save, and choosing to continue the hunt.
Knowing exactly how much pain it's going to cause.
He had to wake up every single morning and consciously choose the truth over his own happiness.
And the culmination of this hunt is absolutely heartbreaking. Muhammad dials the number and calls the real father.
Now, put yourself in the biological father's shoes. You've been searching for your stolen son for 11 years. The trail is completely cold.
So when Muhammad calls, the biological father thinks it's a cruel scam.
Of course he does. You cannot survive 11 years of that specific ambiguous grief without building massive defensive walls against false hope.
He thinks someone is just trying to extort him. So Muhammad sends him photos of the 11-year-old boy to prove it.
And the resemblance is undeniable, I imagine.
It is. The boy looks exactly like his biological siblings. The truth is officially confirmed. But then, Muhammad learns a tragic reality. The biological mother will never get to see her son again.
Oh, no.
She passed away 2 years ago. The family stated her heart was literally broken from losing her baby. The grief just slowly consumed her until she died.
God, that really reinforces the lethal consequences of the ex-wife's lie. Her split-second decision in that hospital didn't just steal a child, it effectively stole a mother's life.
It created a wound that festered until it was fatal, and the wounds continue right into the actual handover.
The handover must have been devastating.
The source details are tough to read. Muhammad voluntarily takes the boy and hands him back to his real family. The 11-year-old boy is crying hysterically.
He doesn't understand what's happening.
He's physically clinging to Muhammad's leg, begging not to be left behind. He doesn't want to leave the only dad he's ever known. Muhammad said it felt like having his heart ripped out of his chest.
I can't even imagine that kind of pain.
But this is where the ethics get really muddy for me, and I want to push back on this a bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
We're sitting here applauding Muhammad's immense moral integrity. But look at that 11-year-old boy. He's terrified. He's crying, clinging to the dad he knows. Does doing the absolute right moral thing sometimes mean inflicting immediate severe trauma on an innocent kid?
That's a really tough question.
Right. Was there really no other way to handle this transition?
This is the central ethical friction of the entire story. We desperately want moral equations to be clean, where doing the right thing yields a universally happy outcome.
But life isn't like that.
No, it's not. The messy reality is that correcting a profound injustice almost always requires creating entirely new emotional wounds. The foundation of the boy's reality was deeply toxic, even if he didn't know it yet.
Because he was still literally living inside a kidnapping.
Precisely. If Muhammad had kept the secret, he would have been actively complicit in the ongoing theft of a human being. He'd be denying the biological father his son, and the boy his true identity.
So by revealing the truth, he shatters the boy's sense of safety.
Yes. There is no path here that doesn't involve profound pain. The tragedy of the biological mother dying before knowing the truth proves the massive damage was already done. Muhammad didn't create the trauma. He merely stopped the lie from continuing to grow.
It's just a resolution born completely out of agony. Which leaves us looking at a very complex fallout today. Let me give you an update on where things currently stand in Alexandria.
Yes, what happened to the ex-wife?
She is facing severe criminal charges for the kidnapping and the years of deception. As for the boy Hamza, or Fairs, his birth name, he's now living with his biological father and his siblings.
Is he adjusting?
He's slowly integrating into the family he was stolen from. But Muhammad hasn't vanished. He still visits the boy regularly. They maintain a relationship, bridging the gap between the man who raised him and the family that shares his blood.
Which really speaks volumes about the grace of the biological father, doesn't it? Allowing the man who raised his stolen son to remain a part of his life.
It demonstrates a shared prioritization of the child's well-being over, territorial claims. When an interviewer asked Muhammad why he didn't just hide the truth to keep the son he loved, his reasoning was incredibly clear.
What did he say?
He said, "I couldn't live a lie. The boy was a trust placed in my hands, and you have to return what isn't yours to its rightful owners, no matter how much it destroys you."
A trust placed in my hands. That is such a powerful reframing of parenthood. He viewed himself not as an owner, but as a steward.
It's incredible. If we summarize this whole journey, we're looking at a story that begins with a stolen, critically ill baby in a hospital, moves through a decade of deep sacrificial love.
Explodes with a DNA test.
Explodes with a DNA test, yeah, and culminates in an ultimate sacrifice driven purely by one man's unshakable conscience. You start by selling all your furniture to save a child's life, and 11 years later, you voluntarily walk away from that child because your moral compass simply will not let you live a lie.
It's the ultimate test of character.
It really is. And it leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. What is the true definition of a parent? Is it dictated by biological bloodline?
Or is it defined by the act of selling your furniture to save a fragile child's life?
Or is it found in the ultimate heartbreaking sacrifice of giving that child up, simply because it is the absolute right thing to do? Take a moment and let that sink in.